This video was brought to you by Incogni. On Tuesday, the US Senate passed a bill that simultaneously approved $91 billion in military aid to Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan, as well as a measure banning, quote, foreign adversary-controlled applications. Leaving aside how weird it is that American legislators lump all of these different things into one bill, this new measure will basically mean the end of TikTok in the US, unless ByteDance, the Chinese company that owns it, agrees to sell. So in this video, we're going to look at why Congress is so keen on banning TikTok, whether it's actually a good idea, and whether it'll even end up really happening. So let's start with a bit of context. The idea of banning TikTok has been floating around American politics for a while now. In fact, it's sort of been on the cards ever since TikTok succeeded musically in late 2018. In 2019, just 1 year later, Democratic Senator Chuck Schumer started a federal inquiry into TikTok and other China-owned content platforms operating in the United States. And a few weeks later, the Department of Defense, the State Department, and the Department of Homeland Security all banned TikTok on agency devices. Then, in early 2020, 3 Republican senators, Josh Hawley, Rick Scott, and Tom Cotton, introduced a bill called the No TikTok on Government Devices Act, which was aimed to do, well, exactly what the name suggests, and it was signed into law by Biden last year. At the time, the main issue that American legislators had was that even if ByteDance isn't formally owned by the Chinese state, it's still a bad idea to let any Chinese company harvest this much American data, because the CCP could very easily force ByteDance to give it up. A lot of this has to do with China's 1993 company law, which requires private companies to allow the establishment of a CCP organization within them. While these organizations used to be relatively uncommon, since 2018 it's been mandatory for domestically listed companies to establish one. And today, the vast majority of big Chinese companies have one. These organizations are nominally supposed to help private companies comply with the law and help the CCP recruit new members. But American legislators worry that they basically give the CCP control over any private Chinese companies, including ByteDance. Anyway, in August 2020, Trump issued an executive order banning TikTok unless ByteDance sold it in 45 days. Now, ByteDance were able to delay things with a legal challenge, but in the end, it didn't really matter because Biden revoked Trump's executive order soon after coming into office. However, in late 2022, Biden basically started saying the exact same stuff that Trump did at the end of his presidency, calling on ByteDance to sell TikTok to American investors or face a ban. Then, in March this year, the United States Department of Justice and the FBI launched an investigation into TikTok specifically, and Senator Hawley introduced a new bill trying to ban TikTok nationwide, describing the app as digital fentanyl. Now, this rhetoric about TikTok being digital fentanyl was symptomatic of a new worry about TikTok, that it was addictive and adversely affecting American teenagers' mental health. And this anxiety has only grown over the last couple of years, as more data has come out, suggesting that teenagers across the Western world aren't as happy or sociable as previous generations. Anyway, Hawley's bill was eventually voted down, but it was clear that anti-TikTok sentiment was growing, with Congress now worried not just about the CCP harvesting the data of TikTok's 170 million US users, but also about the app's impact on American teenagers' mental health. Nonetheless, many American politicians were still wary of actually banning the app, both because they worried that it wasn't consistent with their stated commitment to freedom of speech, and because they worried it might not be electorally prudent to do so, given how popular TikTok is. However, in the past couple of months, Congress has found 2 more reasons to ban TikTok. The first is the upcoming election. While American politicians might have been worried about irritating TikTok's 170 million users, they're more worried about appearing soft on China ahead of a national election. And supporting a ban against TikTok is a visible way of demonstrating your anti-China credentials. In fact, this is probably why Trump tried to ban it so close to the 2020 election. He presumably thought that it would help establish himself as more anti-China than Biden. The second thing, though, is Israel, which has shone a light on TikTok's influence on the American media sphere. Many American legislators, especially more pro-Israel ones, have been worried about the emerging generational divide on the Israel-Palestine issue, with young Americans being significantly more pro-Palestine than older generations, and some have started pointing the finger at TikTok.
But why is this happening? Well, let's look at where young people are getting their news. Nearly a third of adults 18 to 29, these young people in the U.S. are regularly getting their news exclusively from TikTok.
Now, while there's obviously a whole load of reasons that Gen Z might be more pro-Palestine than boomers, and TikTok's advocates might argue that it's the mainstream media that's biased, there is nonetheless good data to suggest that TikTok's algorithm actively suppresses certain kinds of content. An analysis by the New York Times, for instance, found that pro-Israel content was about 60% less likely to appear on TikTok than Instagram. But perhaps most notably, content about the CCP's least favorite topics, including Hong Kong, Tiananmen Square, and the Uyghurs, had basically been scrubbed from TikTok entirely. This is pretty good evidence then that the CCP has some influence with ByteDance and TikTok, and has become the main argument for banning the app. In 2020, the worry was that the CCP knew what America was thinking, but in 2024, the worry is that the CCP both know and decide what America thinks. Anyway, this is the main motivation behind the most recent measure, which requires TikTok to sell itself to an American company within the next 12 months. And as such, a range of potential buyers are now lining up, including Microsoft, Walmart, and the former Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin. But on Wednesday, TikTok's boss told users that the app wasn't going anywhere, and that they challenged the ban in court. So, who is actually going to win this? Well, a leaked internal memo suggests that TikTok will argue that the ban would be a violation of users' First Amendment rights, which enshrine freedom of speech. Now, at first glance, this avenue of defense looks promising, given that last year a free speech defense was enough to overturn a ban imposed by the state of Montana on the app. However, this case is different because Congress isn't trying to ban TikTok outright, but rather force it to sell to an American company. This wouldn't be a violation of users' First Amendment rights because, well, they could still use the app if it was sold. Rather, it's about limiting foreign influence in American media and politics, in much the same way that the US, like most countries, has laws banning foreign ownership of TV stations and networks, which are considered constitutionally compliant. Nonetheless, TikTok have made it clear that they don't plan on selling, so if it looks like they're going to lose in court, they're more likely to just withdraw from the American market entirely. And if this happens, the big question is whether other countries follow suit. Regardless of the option they choose though, this could be the beginning of the end for TikTok. If they leave the US, then they risk a domino of bans globally. If they lose in court or sell, then it's clearly a loss for ByteDance. Even if they win in court, that lawsuit will still be a while away, and in the meantime, creators and advertisers will surely begin to spread their bets, heading for Reels and Shorts instead, slowly killing TikTok from the inside. So, in a fast-moving social media landscape, it looks like all options point towards losses for TikTok, but whether it's truly dead is still yet to be seen. While you've been watching this video, you might not have realized that shady forces in the background are trying to collect your personal data from various sites, bundle it together, and sell it to a third party. These data brokers can then sell your information to anyone, from a company to an online criminal. Now, you might assume that you're always safe online. Perhaps you regularly change your password, or even unsubscribe from those annoying email newsletters that you never even remember signing up for. But unfortunately, this doesn't always save you. Companies that hold your data can still fall victim to a data breach, meaning that these data brokers can still compile all of your information and sell it on to others. The good news is that you have a right to protect your privacy and request that data brokers delete your personal information. But the bad news is that it would take you years to do it manually. And even then, you'd need to repeat this process every few months as data brokers continue collecting your data. Luckily though, this is where our sponsor Incogni comes in. Incogni reaches out to those data brokers on your behalf, requests that your data is removed, and deals with any problems that might arise. Even more, Incogni is persistent and will put in multiple data removal requests even after your data has been removed to ensure that it doesn't go back on the market. So create an account with our link in the description, grant Incogni the ability to work on your behalf, and sit back as they make you safer. Plus, if you use our link, you'll get an exclusive 60% off an annual Incogni plan. Thanks for checking it out, and thanks to Incogni for sponsoring this video.